dark night. Unconscious of the fools, though they didn't see it coming. They got scared and watched the peasants running. NB Studios presents Splash and Dash. Feature story sponsored by Roughneck Soap. Now get ready.
NBS Studios presents Splash and Dash, short stories meant to entertain and amuse. Splash and Dash is sponsored by Roughneck Soap. Guys, are you tired of soap that doesn't work as hard as you do? Try an all-natural soap that will wash away all the gunk and grime of your day and leave you feeling fresh and clean. Go to roughnecksoap.com and get yours today. Roughneck Soap, made for men, approved by women. Splash and Dash's feature presentation is by Torchlight and Oathbound Steel or Pitchforks, Peasants, and Pheromones, written by D.W. Black, narrated by NBS Studios. At dusk, a grim procession snaked its way up the hillside. Farmers, blacksmiths, bakers, and that one cobbler with too many opinions. Their faces were lit by the flicker of torches and the fire of indignation. "Burn the orc! Burn the orc!" they chanted, pitchforks thrusting skyward in a dramatic, if slightly offbeat, rhythm. They halted before a large stone house near the top of the hill. It was suspiciously well kept for a suspected livestock thief. Suspicious indeed. They fanned out, hollering and shaking their torches. "Come out, you green menace! Return my chickens or face the consequences! My prize goat has PTSD!" The door creaked open. Silence rippled through the mob like a collective breath held in fear. Out stepped the orc. She was tall, taller than any of them by at least a head. She had skin the color of sagebrush and eyes like dark honey. Her muscular arms gleamed in the torchlight, wrapped in leather bands. Thigh-high boots and a simple loincloth swayed with the breeze like an intimidating fashion statement. Her expression was unbothered. If anything, she looked bored. The mob collectively flinched. Just then, the sound of galloping hooves echoed across the hills. Then one brave, or very stupid, soul stepped forward. "You're about to get yours!" shouted a dirt-covered skinny man who went by the name of Squibber, trembling behind his torch. "A knight is coming!" "Yeah," someone added. "Real soon! Any minute now!" The crowd erupted into cheer. Finally, their champion had arrived. They began chanting "Burn the Orc" once more. Their cheers dimmed when they saw the rider. From the opposite side of the hill galloped a tall figure on a pale gray horse. The rider wore armor black as pitch, a long cloak trailing as if night itself were bound to his shoulders. The horse tossed its head, steam jetting from its nostrils like a dragon bent on destroying a maritime town. The crowd watched, puzzled. "Let me see! Let me see!" bellowed a rotund man called Gribbs, who had a patch of hair missing from the top of his head and brackish teeth, elbowing past others. Squibber jogged beside him. The horse reared as it neared, kicking its front hooves into the air. The black cloak flared dramatically, as if the knight had turned to the wings of a bat. "It's a knight, what with black armor on a pale gray horse," Squibber whispered. Gribb's eyes bulged. "Did you say a knight what has black armor and what rides a pale gray horse?" He looked again, then shouted, "It's a knight what has black armor and what rides a pale gray horse!" They looked at each other, gasped, brushed the dust off their chests, spun in a circle, and spat on the ground. Someone in the back called, "Who's the Dark Knight?" Gribbs answered, "Some say they've seen him. Others claim they have, but ain't. Some think there's no man in that armor at all, just dark magic holding it together. Others say he was cursed for evil deeds, but some say he sold his soul to you-know-who to best all his foes," Squibber interrupted, pointing downward ominously. Gribbs glared. "Either way, being in his presence don't bode well for anyone." The horse reared again, and the crowd screamed. As one, the mob brushed their chests, spun in a circle, and spat. The Dark Knight shook his head, clearly unimpressed. He dismounted, and the crowd gasped. He removed one gauntlet. They gasped. He removed the other. Gasp. He removed his bassinet. Gasp! "Wait a moment." Gribbs muttered. He looks just like us. Except for the obvious differences, Squibber noted. The knight placed his gear on the saddle and patted his horse affectionately. Then he turned toward the crowd. "May I have your torch?" he asked Squibber politely as he approached. "Yes, sire," the man squeaked, handing it over like a boy giving a robber his sole possession. The knight examined the crowd. "This is a rather decent mob you've got here. Good numbers, fine torches, and also angry." The crowd murmured with modest pride. "Does anyone in this mob," the Dark Knight continues, "have any ale to quench my thirst from my dusty travels?" Gribbs handed him a skin. The knight downed it in one go, eyes locked on Gribbs the entire time. "Ah," he sighed, then handed the skin back. "What are you fine folk doing this evening?" "Well, sire," Gribbs said nervously, "we plan to burn the orc what lives here tonight, on account of she terrorizes our town." "Terrorizes your town, you say?" The knight rested his left hand on his sword hilt. Gribbs's jaw snapped shut as the eyes of the Dark Knight bore through him. "Have I interrupted your festivities? Or have I interrupted your train of thought? Are you finished?" Gribbs gulped. "No. I mean, yes." "Well, allow me to enlighten you," the knight said, eyes narrowing. "This is my house." The mob shifted uncomfortably. "Pray tell," the knight continued, "what does an orc look like?" The Gribbs and Squibber exchanged glances before Gribbs utters, "Wah!" The knight threw the torch to the ground. The crowd jumped. "You heard me, you filthy cur whose mother was fond of an animal related to gerbils and whose father smelt of fermented berries." "Bit harsh, sire," Squibber muttered. "I don't recall asking you a single thing," the Dark Knight roared. "Apologies, my lord," he whispered, immediately covering his mouth. The knight pointed at Gribbs. "What is your country of origin?" "Wah?" "I've never heard of such lands as Wah. Do they speak the king's English in Wah?" Gribbs shakes his head in confusion, then says, "Wah?" "The king's English, you postulate mongrel. Do you speak it?" "Yes, yes, sire." "Then you understand the words that I speak?" the Dark Knight confirms. "Yes, yes, I do, sire." "Then describe for me, and this rabble, what an orc looks like." "What?" The sword flashed and jabbed inches from Gribbs's throat. "Say what one more time, you derelict of an imbecile, you scum of the cattle stall. I dare you. I double dirty mongrel dare you to say what one more time." The mob cowers in fear, and Gribbs begins to hyperventilate. "She's green!" Gribbs screams. "Continue!" "She's tall, and wears a large bodice. Does she look like a fetid mutt?" "What?" The Dark Knight draws his hand back. "May the Lord and all that's holy and sacred keep my hand strong," the Dark Knight chants. "Slap!" The crowd recoiled as Gribbs staggered back. "Ow! That hurt!" "I shall repeat myself one final time. Does she look like a fetid mutt? A common cur to be kicked and trodden upon?" "No! No! She doesn't look like a mutt!" Gribbs wailed. "Then why are you trying to trot upon my wife and home?" Gasp. The mob collectively lost its breath and looked about in a stupor. Murmurs of denial gush from their mouths like geysers. "Yes, you all did. You," he pointed, "have a spoon. What was the plan there?" The man looked at the spoon. "Honestly, I panicked." "What grievances does this town hold against my wife?" the knight asks. "She turned me into a snake," Squibber shouted. The crowd roared in frustration. The knight blinks. "You're not a snake." "I got better," Squibber mumbles. Gribbs smacked the back of his head. "That's a witch, you dimwit." "Anyone else?" the knight asks. "She took 2 of my cows, 5 of my sheep, almost all of my chickens." The knight turned to the doorway. "Tala, love." The orc folded her arms defensively. "I didn't mean anything by it. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was peckish. You were gone. I comfort eat." She sighed wantonly, almost in tears. "I missed you." The crowd said, all in perfect sync. "But Tala, dear," he said gently, "I told you to pay for the food. There's gold in the chest." "I forgot," she sighed. The knight squinted, did a bit of air math, saying, "Carry the 1, multiply by 2. Then he walked to his horse. He pulled out a hefty bag of gold and handed it to Gribbs. Will this suffice? Are we happy? The mob was distracted for a moment as the yellow glitter of gold caressed their faces and reflected in their eyes. The mob huddled, murmured, then nodded. Yes, sire, we're happy. Very happy indeed. Gribbs nodded his head and Squibber smiled with him. That certainly makes up for the slap heard round the kingdom, Squibber added. Gribbs frowned at him. My apologies for any troubles or misunderstandings, my lord, Gribbs says. If Tala forgets again, just send word. The Dark Knight entreats the mob. They agreed quickly, then quietly filed down the hill, torches dimmed and dignity slightly singed. As the last of the crowd vanished, Tala ran out and scooped up the Dark Knight in her arms. My little knight was so brave, she cooed, kissing him loudly. Darling, please, my back, he gasped, squirming. I've made food, and the frame is reinforced, just like you asked, she purred. He turned pale beneath his helmetless head. Wonderful, he muttered. You spoil me and the horse. She bent down, picked up the horse. It nuzzled her, perfectly content in her arms. He didn't even let me mount the other day until I bribed him with carrots, the knight complained. Nonsense, Tala said, nuzzling the horse. Who's a good boy? The horse lifted its lip in a grin at the knight. The knight grumbled. Join the knighthood, they said. See the world, they said. Marry an orc to save the kingdom. Then he sniffed the air. Is that roast lamb? Tala winked. With honey glaze. The knight sighed contentedly. I suppose it could be worse. This concludes our current story. Splash and Dash is sponsored by Roughneck Soap and supported by viewers like you. Click like, subscribe, share, and comment to join us in the next story from Splash and Dash.